In the last lesson, we discussed how analysis can support a decision without simply telling the decision maker what they want to hear. Now we face a more practical question. When you have finished collecting evidence, what exactly should you deliver? The same company announcement, hiring decline, lawsuit record, and executive change can become a one-page current brief, part of a long-term company dossier, an early warning product, or a 6-month risk assessment. The evidence has not changed. The reader's question has. So this is not a vocabulary lesson about 4 labels. We are going to learn how to recognize which product a real requirement needs, and how that choice changes your evidence, wording, and update rules.
Product choice changes the workload immediately. If someone needs to know what happened this morning, and you spend 2 weeks building historical context, your answer may be accurate but useless. The decision window has already closed. The opposite failure is just as common. Management asks whether a supplier is likely to remain reliable for the next 6 months, and the analyst delivers a folder of today's screenshots. There is no baseline, no counter evidence, and no comparison of possible futures. Current intelligence needs speed. Basic intelligence needs stability. Warning intelligence must connect signals to action. Estimative intelligence must compare alternatives. None is more advanced than the others. The right question is, what will the reader do next?
The 4 products become easier to remember when you connect each one to a question. If the reader asks, "What just happened?" you need current intelligence. If the question is, "What has this company looked like over time?" you need basic intelligence. If the reader asks, "Which changes should trigger early action?" that is warning intelligence. And if the question becomes, "Which future is more likely?" you are producing an estimate. One investigation may use all 4. A brief can report a sudden hiring decline. A dossier supplies the 12-month baseline. A warning system watches lawsuits and customer changes. A later assessment compares future cooperation risks. They share evidence, but they cannot share the same conclusion boundary.
Think of current intelligence as an event update with clear limits. It answers what happened, when it happened, who was involved, where the information came from, and what is confirmed right now. A useful layout separates confirmed facts, unconfirmed claims, and information that has already been shown to be false. Suppose the company website really removed 10 job postings. That is confirmed. Whether this means business contraction is not. If social media says the company has closed, but official records and local reporting contradict that claim, mark it as false or unsupported rather than letting it contaminate the brief. Speed matters, but speed does not give us permission to write the future early. A current brief often ends with the next update time and the evidence that would trigger it.
Now consider our technology company case. Public job postings have declined over the last 3 months. Historical snapshots of the recruitment page support that fact. During the same period, 2 court records appeared and 1 executive changed roles. The strongest current judgment is not, the company is deteriorating. It is, the company's public signals have changed, and hiring activity is lower than in the previous period, but the available evidence does not establish business deterioration. That wording leaves room for several explanations: contraction, normal seasonality, a move to another recruitment channel, or more internal referrals. The next job is to check the historical baseline, official announcements, and alternative hiring channels.
Basic intelligence is not today's news. It is the subject file that future investigations can reuse. A company dossier should include the legal entity, aliases, subsidiaries, business lines, executives, official channels, important historical events, and long-term data. Each item needs a source, a date, and a last verified date. 6 months later, those details tell you whether a relationship is still current. A folder full of links is not a dossier. A useful basic intelligence product lets another analyst answer 4 questions quickly. Who is this? Who are they connected to? what is normal for them, and does the current situation depart from that normal pattern?
If we only look at this month's hiring decline, we cannot tell whether it is unusual. Stretch the timeline to 12 months, and the interpretation may change completely. Perhaps the company reduces public vacancies every year in the same quarter. Perhaps it moved hiring to a campus program. Or perhaps hiring had been stable until this month, when lawsuits and executive changes appeared at the same time. The baseline gives today's change a reference point. The output should not be just a trend line. Mark normal variation, previous anomalies, and gaps in data coverage. Warning and estimative products will reuse that dossier card later.
Warning intelligence is not a prediction that disaster is coming. It defines, in advance, which public signals should make us pay attention and what action follows. For supplier performance risk, we might monitor hiring, lawsuits, penalties, customers, executives, and public announcements. One weak signal normally moves into observation. If several independent indicators worsen during the same period, the warning level can rise. Each warning level needs an owner and an action. Amber may mean additional verification. Red may mean escalation to legal and business teams. A colored dashboard with no action behind it is decoration, not a warning product.
Once company risk is translated into indicators, the team knows what to watch. Hiring below the 12-month baseline can enter observation. A major new lawsuit or regulatory penalty raises the legal risk level. If an executive change appears together with the loss of an important customer, that combination triggers a focused review. 3 independent signal groups moving in the same direction can justify a high-priority investigation. We also keep the gaps visible. We do not have current financial statements or direct customer data. The warning product can say that public risk signals are increasing. It cannot say that cash flow has already deteriorated.
Estimative intelligence discusses the future, but it does not announce one inevitable outcome. First, define the time horizon and the decision the estimate will support. Then keep at least 2 plausible explanations. A hiring decline could reflect a short-term adjustment, operating pressure, or a broader business transformation. Each scenario needs supporting evidence, counter-evidence, key assumptions, and information gaps. You may judge one scenario more likely than another, but add confidence and explain what new evidence would change the ranking. An assessment that can be updated is much more useful than a confident sentence that cannot be challenged.
For our company, we keep 3 scenarios on the table. The first is hiring channel migration while operations remain stable. The second is short-term business pressure that increases delivery risk over the next 6 months. The third is an intentional change in business direction and organizational structure. Hiring contraction, lawsuits, and an executive change currently give more support to the second scenario. The evidence is still incomplete because financial and customer-side data are missing. If hiring recovers, new orders appear, or the company publishes a credible restructuring explanation, the risk judgment must be reduced or rewritten.
Now write the same hiring clue 4 different ways. Current intelligence says, public job postings declined this month. The cause remains unconfirmed. Basic intelligence updates the 12-month hiring baseline and records channel changes. Warning intelligence checks whether hiring, legal, customer, and management indicators trigger together. Estimative intelligence asks which operating scenario is more likely over the next 6 months. All 4 products may cite the same evidence ID. Their questions, time horizons, and conclusion boundaries are different. When you find a new item, do not ask only whether it is important. Ask which product it belongs in and which question it helps answer.
When the product changes, the collection plan changes with it. Current intelligence prioritizes original releases and time confirmation. Basic intelligence needs entity records, relationships, history, and long-term data. Warning intelligence needs continuous indicators, normal baselines, and trigger events. Estimative intelligence must broaden source types and actively look for counter-evidence and alternative explanations. Some records never disappear. Source, collection time, current limitation, and last update. Product depth may vary, but reviewability does not. The most common failures all cross the evidence boundary. A current brief turns one early clue into a long-term trend. A dossier collects hundreds of links without organizing identity, relationships, or baselines. A warning says, "Be careful," but gives no indicator, threshold, or action. An assessment tells one uninterrupted story and never tests a competing scenario. When that happens, return to 3 calibration points. What did the reader ask? What is the time horizon? And what does the evidence actually support? Those questions usually pull the conclusion back into a defensible range.
Before writing the product, fill in 5 fields. What decision would the reader make? Which product type fits that decision? Are we answering about now, a historical baseline, a warning window, or a future period? What is the minimum evidence standard, including independent sources and counter-evidence? Finally, what event triggers an update? Who owns it? And when is the next review? Once those fields are clear, the title, body structure, and update frequency become much easier to design. The form also exposes requirement drift while the investigation is still underway. Use the evidence bundle from this lesson. A hiring decline, 2 court records, 1 executive change, and 1 company announcement. Write 4 titles. The current intelligence title may state only the latest confirmed change. The basic intelligence title must name the subject and baseline range. The warning title needs a risk, indicator, and trigger. The estimative title needs a time horizon and competing scenarios. If the titles are difficult to write, the problem is usually not that you forgot the product labels. The requirement itself is still vague. In the next lesson, we return to the beginning of an investigation and turn look into this company into a question that can actually be answered and reviewed.